Previously at the water's edge.
Okay, so let's just look at Ecclesiastes. Those who watch and wait for favorable winds never plant. And those who watch and fret over every cloud never harvest. And do you hear what he's saying here? Like, don't wait for perfect conditions because perfect conditions aren't going to happen. Don't wait for 100% certainty. Don't wait for like this clear sign that you're like 1,000,000% there, because you're not going to get that. There's always going to be rain. There's always going to be clouds in the sky. There's always going to be a reason to say someday, but when we keep saying someday, the bill keeps adding up. Don't wait for someday. The timing and the conditions will never be perfect. Let go of someday and let God start this amazing work today. Today.
And I need you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to open my eyes and see that you're shaping my life. And all I am, and I surrender. Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I need you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. And all I am, and I surrender. Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me, and my flesh may fail. My God, you never will. And I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail. My God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life.
Well, that's the closest some of y'all have come to clapping in church for about like 3 years. So, AJ, you're gonna have to get him to work on that. Wait till the next song. Okay. So that's a challenge from Jimmy Sweden. I'm Craig Finstead, one of the pastors here at the Water's Edge. I've been promoted to doing the announcements this morning, and I could not be more pleased about that. If you're a guest, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I really hope this is the first of many, many times that you worship with us. We'd just love it if you become our church family. We're wanting to be a better church, and we know that you bring skills and interests and experiences that would make us a better church. Got some cool stuff to plug into soon, so I'll talk about that in just a few moments. The video you saw was from our We Serve Saturday, last Saturday at Abide. It's a ministry in North Omaha, and they just do amazing stuff there. So a lot of us passed out food. There's about a dozen or so people that built a fence that was much needed for them. So many cool things happen. We get to partner with a ministry in Omaha that's just doing amazing things that we could not do by ourselves. When you serve, you're making friends. You're just doing really cool stuff. Jesus said that he came to the world to serve. We're created in his image. So when we serve, we look a lot more like Jesus. And that's a really cool thing. So we're also able to give them a check for $7,400. Just because they're doing such cool stuff, we wanted to partner with them and just help them do what they do best. We're a church of abundance around here. We don't believe in scarcity. We practice that as a church, and y'all practice that as individuals. We also paid for their fence, so we gave them close to $10,000 just in the last 2 weeks, and that's because of your generosity. You all get this. I don't need to drive it home. I just want to say thank you. You're one of the most generous churches around, and you allow us to do things that many churches could only dream of. And just thank you for your faithfulness, your sacrifice, your commitment. So let's see. Next week, we got a few things going on. It's actually not next week, it's May 2nd. So for those of you who are new, whether you're here in person or whether you're online, it's after worship on Sunday. It's called Starting Point. And the best thing about Starting Point is we get to know you. We get to hear your story. We get to learn a little bit about you. We do share about the church as well. We all have a meal together. It's a great way to get to know other new people. It's a great way to get to know staff, and it's a great way for staff to get to know y'all. So whether you're here in person, whether you're online, come on May 2nd. We'd love to get to know you after worship, after this service, at 10:30 service for Starting Point. I did a baptism at the first service back there, so if you're watching online, I'm wearing a different shirt. That's why. That shirt got really wet during the baptism, and I did change. So, but baptism is such a cool thing. It was just a beautiful experience just about 30 minutes or so ago. If you haven't been baptized, if you don't know if you've been baptized, if you have kids that haven't been baptized, come to the baptism class. It doesn't mean that you're signing up to be baptized. It means you're learning about it, and you can make a informed decision on whether this is the next step in your faith journey. We'd love to have you join us. You can check out all that stuff online, weomaha.com. So we do have a We Serve Saturday coming up. It's always going to be the second Saturday of the month. So next month is going to be with the Lifehouse Partnership. So we're one of their biggest partners. They provide diapers for families and kids here in Omaha who otherwise couldn't afford diapers. We've been a big financial supporter of them, and we've had a couple small groups that have done a really good job of supporting them. We're opening this one up to the entire church. So it's a great way. You just serve a few hours on Saturday mornings, a chance to get to know new people, a chance to love our city, Omaha, into a relationship with Jesus Christ. So you can check that out as well, weomaha.com. And the last thing we got is plant sales. We got those going on today. So many of us buy our plants at places like Lowe's or Home Depot's or Lanaha's or wherever, and those are all great places. But you can get the same plants here, very competitively priced. All the proceeds for these go to our youth on their mission trips this summer. We have a junior high that's taken one trip, and our senior high has taken a separate trip. So it's going to snow tomorrow, I hear. So don't plant plants today. Don't go to like these places and buy them today and plant them because it's going to freeze. So this is perfect. Like, buy them today. They'll be delivered here in a few weeks. You can plant them when the weather's warmer. But it's a great way to support our kids. So encourage you to do that. So we're going to watch a real quick video about one of our saints. So here it is. All right, so all those videos have two things in common. One is they're all either taken in Uganda or Belize, and the other one, Chris, they all have your beautiful smile in there. You've been just such a faithful participant in these trips for just basically our whole existence. So tell us a little bit about what is your favorite memory of one of the trips you're on, or how about a favorite memory? You probably got a lot of them, I'm guessing.
I have a ton of them.
So we'll have you just share one or two. Leander's worked really hard on this sermon, and we gotta give her some time, you know.
Okay. One of them, probably my favorite one, is the young man. We were in Belize, and I told this one last sermon, but anyhow, he came up to me. He was a high school student, and he told me he wished I could be his grandma. And so I told him, I says, well, I can be your adopted grandma. He got so excited, he grabbed me and he hugged me the tightest I've ever been hugged.
That's such a cool story. So Chris Syme, we got two Chris's up here. Tell us a little bit about this woman. She's very humble, and she's probably not going to tell us a lot about herself. So tell us about her.
Just so committed, so energetic, so wanting to help people. Just a rock in the pharmacy every year, handling all the paperwork, making sure everything's running. It's just somebody you can always count on, and has just been a part of all of the different trips and helping so many people.
Do either of you know how many trips have you been on? Do you know?
This is the first year I've missed going on a mission trip since 2003.
2003. So if you're doing a couple a year, I can take 10% of any number really quick. I'm just going to do this other one real quick. So that's that's 30 trips. That's amazing. So tell us about, why did you keep going back?
Because I love it.
Because you love it. Good. Leander's going to have a lot of time to preach today, so your answers are very succinct, and that's cool.
And I haven't grown up yet.
What's that?
I have not grown up yet.
You have not grown up yet. Neither has Chris, so you guys are good like that.
Except I'm older than him.
So there's a lot of people out there that I've heard that just tell me, I'm going to do that one day. I'd be interested in doing that. So what would you say to someone that's thinking, I want to do one of these things. I want to go to Belize. I want to go to Uganda.
Do it.
So if you're ever thinking about going to Belize or Uganda, you've got the woman that's closest to sainthood here at the water's edge, and she's got two words for you: do it. But we're going to reestablish these trips, and we're really, really excited about that. But Chris, Syme, do you have anything to say to Chris Milroy on behalf of all the mission trips and the people who have went?
Yeah, just thank you. I mean, it's been such a blessing. You've been a blessing to so many people, helping thousands of people over that number of years, being so supportive of everybody else that's gone on the trips. We all just thank you for your service.
I just love doing it.
Yeah, and Chris, on behalf of our congregation, I just want to say thank you. You are an inspiration to so many. Jesus sends people in different shapes and sizes and ages and races, and you are one of the best examples of a servant that we have. You've invested thousands of hours, tens of thousands of dollars in our international missions here. You have helped countless people. I'm guessing that you've saved many lives, and I'm guessing that you've led a lot more people to Jesus. And on behalf of our congregation, I just say thank you.
You're welcome.
And after I prayed for Chris at the first service, she was very clear to me. She says, and I'm not done yet. But whatever your next season in ministry is, we pray for you and we thank you for your faithfulness. So those of you online, if wherever you're at, just extend some hand of blessing. Those of you who are here in person, including the band, I invite you to do so as well as we just pray for this saint of the church. So Lord, we thank you for Chris Milroy. Lord, she is just given so much over the years to our international missions. And Lord, she's entering a new season of ministry, a new season of life, and we just pray your blessing on whatever that is. Lord, for all the lives that she's touched, both here at the Water's Edge, at Faith Westwood, for all the just random participants that have gone over our trips throughout the years, for the people that she's served, for the people that she's listened to, for the people that she's hugged. God, we just thank you for this woman's tremendous impact on our church, our city, and our world. Lord, she's an example of what it means to serve. And Lord, I remember there's a story that Jesus told, and it was about two men that used their gifts and their passions wisely, and they took some risk, and they had great faith. And at the end, to both of them, he said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And Lord, for the season of Chris's life, we say, well done, my good and faithful servant. So Lord, we pray your blessing upon our sister, our friend, and we pray this blessing in the strong name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Good morning, church. This first song is called Yes, I Will. And I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. He won't fail me now. And in the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. Working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will. Yep. Sing that again. I count on one thing. And I count on one thing. The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now. And in the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. Working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will all my days. Oh, yes, I will. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of our name. And nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of our name. Nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. Oh, yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will all my days. Oh, yes, I will. Don't you know? Ain't no rest in worry. Troubles come and troubles go. I have seen the sparrow, and I have watched her fly. No, she does not worry. Well, tell me, why should I? So hold on, love. Things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know it's hard. So hold on, love. Things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know they are. I have seen the lily dancing in the wind, open to the sunshine, and open to the rain, dressed in all her beauty, giving what she needs. If I listen closely, I can hear her sing too. Hold on, love, things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know it's hard. Hold on, love, things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know they are. Yeah. Hold on, love, things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know it's hard. Hold on, love, things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get better. I know they are.
Words. They're everywhere we go. Some good, some bad, some go in one ear and out the other. Others stick.
Catchphrases. Those words we hear that become mottos in our hearts. Things like, let go and let God, walk by faith, and the best is yet to come.
They sound great. What do those phrases mean? Where did they come from? And should we even be holding on to them?
Who here thinks we should have harmonica every Sunday? Jimmy, you're on the hook every Sunday from here on out. Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Leandra. I'm the pastor that was actually promoted this morning to giving the message. I bumped Craig to announcements. So I'm glad to be with you guys here this morning. Chris left me a lot of time at 9 o'clock, too, so I've added 3-4 more stories. I think the sermon's up to like 50, 55 minutes now. So thank you, Chris, for that. So we've been doing catchphrases. You saw if you were here last week, Craig talked about let go and let God and how we can apply that catchphrase to our life. And we're going to look at another very common catchphrase today. You've probably seen it like on Instagram or maybe like hanging in someone's living room on one of those canvas print things. But it's the phrase walk by faith. In between services, someone told me they actually have this tattooed on them. So it's a very common Christian catchphrase that we like. And as I was looking at this one this week, I feel like this is a catchphrase that I've really learned a lot about in just the last 2 years. Like, I've had this gig as a pastor for almost 2 years now, and I remember 3 years ago, I was in seminary and I was, getting ready to graduate, and I was looking at making this transition from being a student, which I had done for 26 years, to now transitioning to finally getting a job and becoming a pastor, and had all these worries and fears about making that transition and about becoming a pastor. I remember one of those fears was obviously the public speaking part of getting up and wearing a microphone on my face and having all these people staring at me like you guys are and having to talk to them. I was worried about that. I was worried about am I going to be any good at this? I cannot take out another student loan. This has got to be the one. There's no going back to school if this doesn't pan out for me. And I was worried about that. I was worried about the time commitment of, pastors have to work on weekends, and I'd, never had to do that before. I was worried about giving that up. I remember praying to God that last year, are you sure this is what you want me to do? They work on Sundays. That's when the Packers play. I don't have a DVR. I just wasn't sure how that was going to work out. I'm 2 NFL seasons in now, and it's been okay. I had all these fears about becoming a pastor. I was so scared, and one of the things I was most worried about was this word itinerancy. And what that means for pastors is that we don't get to choose where we work and live. The bishop and the cabinet, they have a meeting, and then some guy calls us and says, here's the church you're going to. And that's where we go. We don't really have a choice. And I had chosen everywhere I'd wanted to go up to this point. I chose my undergrad college, I chose my seminary, I chose where I lived in between. And now I'm waiting for this phone call from some guy I've never met, and he's going to tell me where I live and where I work. And he has total control over that, and that just terrified me. This word itinerancy. And I wasn't alone. Your last year of seminary, this is the most common talked about subject in the classroom. Have you gotten your call yet? Do you know where you're going? Do you know where you got appointed? And everyone just worrying about where we were going to end up. And I remember for a lot of my classmates, actually, this itinerancy thing was a deal breaker for them. The idea of signing up to be told where you're going to go, they were just I just can't do it. So there's other options. A lot of my classmates, they went and they worked for nonprofits or other Christian ministries that weren't the church. Or you can even choose to be on a church staff as a youth pastor or discipleship pastor, and then you're not a part of the itinerant system. The bishop doesn't tell you where to go. You can apply to be a youth pastor anywhere. And so a lot of my classmates, they chose that path because they didn't want to do the itinerant thing. It was just too much. It was too scary to have this uncertainty of not knowing where you're going to live. And even once you know, every year this happens again, where you could get a call being okay, now you're moving to another church. For a lot of them, that wasn't going to work for them, so they chose a different path. And now that I'm 2 years in and looking at this now, I think they're probably going to be disappointed if they thought making that decision was going to protect them from uncertainty in life, because this is not unique to pastors. A year from now, a lot of us are going to be places we didn't expect and we didn't choose. For a lot of us, what our life looks like a year from now is totally unknown and uncertain, just as much as it is for me. Just because you didn't sign up for itinerancy doesn't mean that you get to pick and choose every single part of your life. That's just not how it works. We all have to deal with the uncertainty. We all have to deal with the unknown, and none of us like that. Relationships, they come and go and change without our permission. That happens to all of us. Even if you don't work for the church, your boss and your company, they still make decisions that affect you, and you don't always get to be a part of making those decisions. That's not unique to us. A lot of us, we work hard to save money, and we think we're going to spend it this way, and then there's a car accident and it all goes down the drain. We don't get to control that, or we walk into a doctor's office and we walk out and everything's changed and everything we thought we knew is totally flipped around. This fear of the unknown, this is true for all of us. We don't know what the next year is going to hold, or the rest of this year, or even the rest of today, like what's going to happen this afternoon. There's unknowns even just in that short amount of time. This is something we all have to deal with. And this next phrase is Paul's comfort and words to us when we're worried about the unknown and all the uncertainties, and it's starting to get to us. He writes to this church in 2 Corinthians, and he says, we walk by faith and not by sight. And he's telling them, this is your reality. Most of us don't like it. If we got to choose between these two, I think almost all of us would choose the walk by sight thing, but that's just not how it works. Like, we can't see into the future. We have to walk by faith. That's really the only option. We would much rather know what's going to happen and know exactly how and when it's going to happen and get to have some say in how it happens, but that's just not how it works. We walk by faith. And I remember, like, even once I got my first appointment here, Sam and I lived in those apartments next door, and, like, this fear of the itinerancy thing and the uncertainty and the unknown, it still, like, totally paralyzed me. Like, we talked about maybe buying a house, and I was so scared. I was like, what if we buy a house and then I get moved next year? Like, that's a lot of money. It's a big commitment. What if we get moved? I don't know if we should buy a house. Or, like, should we get a membership to this thing? Well, it's a 12-month membership, and what if we get moved and then we wasted our money? And, small things like, should we buy tickets to this concert? Well, that's next June, and what if I get moved and then we can't go to the concert? I think eventually Sam was probably like, can we do anything? Like, I know you might get moved. People get new jobs all the time. It's going to be okay. But, like, I was so scared of that. Like, that was hanging over my head of, you don't know where you're going to be next year. And eventually I just had to be like, Leandra, that's how everyone lives. You still have to make decisions. You still have to commit to stuff. It's going to be okay. If you get moved and you bought the concert ticket, like, it's $35. It's going to be okay. You can resell it on Ticketmaster. Maybe you'll even make $5. But, like, this hung over me and, like, totally paralyzed me. And I think when we look at the unknowns and the uncertainty, like, we can let that paralyze us and we can just stand there in fear and worry about it, or we can learn to walk by faith. And if we get really good at that, then even though the future is still unknown, we can face it with courage and confidence. So we're going to look at a man today from the Old Testament, and this guy walked a ton of miles, like physically walked a ton of miles in his life, and he walked almost all of them by faith. And his name was Moses, and most of us have heard about him. He's got about 60 chapters in the Bible of just his life. We're going to hit like 2 or 3 today, so don't worry. We're not going to get the whole Moses story. But Moses' story of walking by faith, it actually starts with the faith of his parents. So Moses was born in Egypt to a Hebrew family, but Hebrews at that time were slaves in Egypt. They were an enslaved people, and right before Moses was born, there were so many Hebrews in Egypt that Pharaoh, like the Egyptian king, got worried that there's going to be so many of them that if they rebel against me, they're going to win. So he ordered this decree for the whole country and said, if a Hebrew is born and it's a baby boy, they must be killed immediately. I guess he wasn't afraid of the girls growing up and revolting. It was just the boys. So he said, every Hebrew baby boy that's born has to be killed. Well, this is what Moses was born into. He was born with this decree that, he was supposed to be killed. Well, how many Hebrew mom and dads do you think were following that law? Almost none of them. So Moses was born, and his mom and his dad, they said, even though it's the law and we're supposed to do this, we're obviously not going to do that. We're not going to, kill our son. So they kept him hidden in their house. Like, the neighbors couldn't know. No one in town could know. Otherwise, someone might show up and take him away. So when he was a baby, it kind of worked out. Like, he just slept, and he was really small, and they could kind of hide him in a back room. But did any of you guys have toddlers at your house? Like, imagine trying to keep a toddler hidden from everyone in the neighborhood. Like, they can walk, they can talk, they escape out of the house. Like, as Moses started to grow up, his mom's like, I can't keep this kid hidden anymore. Like, eventually someone's going to find out, and they're going to take him away, and they're going to kill him. And so, she's afraid of the unknown. And at this point, she has 2 choices as a mother. The first choice is, like, I can keep him in sight, I can keep him at home, and just try my best to protect him, but at least he's here, and just hope that no one ever finds him, and just hope that I can keep him safe. So that's option number 1. The second option for Moses' mom is, I can send him away. I can send him somewhere where I can't see him, and I don't have as much control, and I don't know where he's going to end up, but at least that way there's some hope that he can have a normal life. Maybe he'll get out of the country or with another family, and he'll be kept safer than he is here. So she has these two options, and really it's like the known and the controllable versus the unknown and the out of my control option with her son. And in my experience, when people are faced with these two options, the known and the unknown, 9 times out of 10, they're going to pick the known because it's safe and it's comfortable and we feel like we can control it. You know, even if the situation we know is not very good, it's still safer than the unknown out there that we can't control. We even actually have a catchphrase for this, like, for this same thing. So have any of you guys heard the phrase, better the devil you know than the one you don't know? Someone at the first service yelled no. I was like, how have you not heard that? But we have this phrase like, better the devil you know than you don't know. And basically what we're saying is like, better this known situation that's not very good than heading out into the unknown because it's probably going to be worse. And so I'm just going to stay with the devil I know. And the funny thing about this phrase to me is like, why is the unknown automatically just another devil? Like, better the devil you know than the one you don't. Well, why is the unknown automatically a devil? What if the unknown is like something amazing that Jesus has in store for us? Because then the catchphrase would make no sense. Better the devil we know than the unknown future with Jesus. That wouldn't be a good catchphrase. But that's like the reality most of the time is we stay with the devil we know, and really the unknown is like in Jesus' hands. And, you know, we have people who like stay in bad relationships that they know are bad, but they say, you know, better the devil I know. What if I leave this person and I never find anyone as good? Or even worse, what if I find no one at all and now I'm alone? Like, I'd rather just stay here with this person. Or, you know, I hear people talk about their jobs sometime, and like 30 seconds into the conversation, it's very obvious they hate this place. But they've been working there for 15 years, and they're going to work there for another 5 years because better the devil you know. What if I quit and try and find a new job and I don't find anything, or it's not as good? I should have just stayed at that job that I hated. You know, or we have this opportunity to do something new and exciting and take a chance, and we say, well, like, what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if I, you know, mess up things? I'll just stay here where it's safe, where I know what I'm doing, and instead of trying that new thing. And then we justify, like, better the devil I know than the devil I don't. And living like this, it just keeps us from experiencing all those unknowns. And life is always going to be full of unknowns, and most of us don't like that at all. But the truth is, those unknown situations and opportunities and times are where God does some of his best work in us. When we take that step of faith into the unknown, God says, now I can get to work with this person. Finally, they've let go. Finally, they've put the trust in me and in my plans. And you know, when we trust God with the uncertainty, it's like the unknown is scary, but we don't realize is it's only unknown to us. Like, God knows. God not like, I guess we'll see what happens. Like, we're the only ones who don't know what's going to happen. God totally knows, and God loves us and cares for us, and he's like, trust me with this unknown. I promise you, like, this is going to be good. You don't know it, but I do. So Moses' mother, she chose the walk by faith option with her son. She made this little basket out of sticks, and it says she like put this tar mixture on the bottom so it was waterproof, and she put her baby boy in it, and she sent him down the Nile River. So this is not like a slow babbling brook where he's floating away. Like, she put him in the Nile River in Egypt. It's huge. But she said, you know, I'm going to trust God. Like, my son is not safe at home. I'm going to send him down, and I'm going to hope that, you know, God takes care of him and he finds a safe home. And she stood at the water's edge and, like, watched the basket for as long as she could until she couldn't see it anymore. And then, like, once she couldn't see it anymore, it's all faith from there. And I just think it's such a beautiful scene of Moses' mother standing there and watching him. And this scene kind of reminds me of like parents whose kids are going away to college for the first time. Like, I remember the first few times I left my house and drove away, like I would be a mile down the street and look in the rearview mirror, and I still see my parents at the end of the driveway, like, make good choices. I was like, I will. And then I would come back from college 3 months later, and they're still in the driveway. I'm like, have you guys been standing here the whole time that I was gone? Like, you have another son. He's not as well behaved as me. Have you guys seen him? Like, you should be watching this guy. But, you know, the parents, like, it makes sense. They want to stand there. They want to see their kid for as long as they can. But, like, eventually I get to the end of my neighborhood and I take a right turn, and then they can't see me at all. And after that moment, like, they have to rely on faith. They can't see me anymore. So Moses' mother had this experience. She sent her son down the river, and I think like in her biggest dreams and like deepest prayers for her son was probably just like, I hope he's safe, right? I hope he whoever finds him or wherever he ends up is just a place that's safe. But then God did what God usually does when we walk by faith and we trust him with our unknown. Like, he totally shattered her expectations for her son. Like, she was just hoping that he would be safe, but what actually happens is he's found in the river by Pharaoh's daughter. So, like, the princess of Egypt. And it says when the princess opened this basket, she saw the baby, and the little boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him, and she said, this must be one of the Hebrew children that was supposed to be killed, and his parents sent him away. So instead of condemning Moses to death, like, the princess falls kind of in love with this little boy, and she ends up adopting him. So, like, Moses' mom was just hoping that he would be safe and put her trust in God, and what did God do instead? Moses ends up in the royal family. He like ends up living in the palace, just living the life. He's got all these resources and money, and now he's kind of a prince in the country. Like, this is far and beyond what Moses' mother could have ever dreamed for her son. Our greatest dreams and plans for ourselves, they will never exceed what God has planned for us. And when we try and walk by sight, like, we might get some of our dreams, and that'd be pretty good. But when we walk by faith, we're going to get to do all these crazy things we couldn't even dream of. I love this verse in 1 Corinthians when Paul's trying to explain this to people. And he's saying, like, you can trust your human wisdom, and you can trust your human plans, and you can make a 5-year plan, and that's okay. But you can also trust God's plan and God's wisdom and God's 5-year plan for you. And he says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has even imagined what God has prepared for those who love them. Like, your wildest dreams for yourself cannot even compare to, like, what God has planned. Your wildest dreams and expectations and hopes and wishes for your kid are still smaller than what God has planned for your kid. These unknown futures that we spend all this time worrying about, like, I spent a whole year of seminary worrying about where I was going to get appointed, and I was like, I just hope it's a good place. I hope they like me. I hope I can do a good job. God had control of that. I could have saved a lot of time. I got appointed here. It's like totally exceeded my expectations, and it's been amazing. And I remember, so before I went to seminary, I was the intern here. Some of you guys might remember, like, intern Leandra. But back at Millard West, like, my last sermon at Millard West, I was like, all right, I'm never coming back here again. Like, I'm from Iowa. This is my last sermon. I'm never going to see these people again. I can totally get up here and say whatever I want. And then after the service, I'll leave and I'll drive to North Carolina. And, like, if they're mad at me, it doesn't matter because I'll be gone. So I didn't say anything too horrible. And, like, some of you might remember this last sermon, but I did do something that I wish I could take back, which is I said the M word in one of my sermon, in that last sermon. So if you're trying to, like, rack your brain right now on what the M word is, I'm just going to say it once. I'm not going to say it more than once, but, like, I said the word moist in my sermon in an illustration. And I said it like 4 or 5 times as, like, here's words that we hate hearing. And, like, people were walking out the back because they were worried I was just going to keep saying this M word. And I was like, I'll just say this and I'll embarrass myself and then I'm out of here. Well, little did I know, 3 years later, I was back up here, and Craig was announcing that I was going to be the associate pastor. And when I walked out, a woman stopped me out there, and she's like, remember when you said the M word in that sermon? And I was like, I know, but I wasn't supposed to see you ever again. I would have never said that if I knew. But, like, let this be a lesson to all of you. If you try to, like, set limits on what God's going to do in your life, you're going to embarrass yourself. Because I was so sure standing up there that day that this was it. Like, I'm never going to be back here. I was so sure of that I said this word that everyone hates over and over again. And then God was like, I actually am going to bring you back to that place. That was beyond my wildest dreams, obviously. So Moses is having this happen too. Like, his mom walked by faith, and now he's living the dream in the palace. But unfortunately, Moses is still human, which means he made mistakes, and he ends up messing up his own good fortune eventually. So he's a young man now, and he's out walking around. He sees this Egyptian that's just beating a Hebrew slave. And Moses gets angry and he ends up attacking the Egyptian and he ends up killing him. Well, the adopted Hebrew boy living in Pharaoh's palace that's killing Egyptians didn't go over well with Pharaoh. So again, Moses has a bounty on his head for the second time in his life. And he has to flee Egypt, and he flees and he gets to this small town in the middle of nowhere called Midian. And again, Moses starts over. He gets married there. He has a few kids. He becomes a shepherd, and life is good in Midian. He's doing all right there. And then God intervenes again and kind of messes up Moses' plan. And most of us probably remember this famous part of his life, but he's out with his sheep one day, and this bush catches on fire spontaneously. And Moses is like, "That's weird. How'd that bush catch on fire?" And then the bush starts talking to him and says that it's God. And Moses is really confused on what's happening right now, but he goes up and he has this conversation with God, and God says, "I am going to go into Egypt, and I am going to free the Hebrew slaves. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to take them out of slavery, and I'm going to take them to this promised land, and life's going to be just so much better for them there." And Moses is like, "God, this is great. You should have done this a long time ago, first of all. But second of all, I'm glad it's happening now. I'm so excited that you're going to free these Hebrew people from all they've been through in Egypt." But then the second part came, and Moses wasn't excited about this part. God said, "And Moses, you are going to be the one who's going to do it. You are going to go in there and tell Pharaoh off, and then you are going to free the Hebrew people." All of Moses' excitement just totally drained at that moment. He was not excited. He did not want to have this role. He did not think he was good enough. And he starts arguing with God about taking on this role of being the one to lead them out of slavery. So I want you to listen to his excuses here, because we totally use these same excuses. Like when God invites us to walk by faith and take on this new opportunity or head out into the unknown, I think we tend to say the exact same thing that Moses said years and years and years ago. So here's his first excuse, or his first response to God. He protested to God and said, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? Has this ever been you?" He's basically saying, "Me? Are you sure you have the right number? I'm just a shepherd. I'm not, a prophet or a teacher or anyone special. I think you're looking for someone else." Moses' first instinct was "You got the wrong guy. This is not who you want for this job. I'm just your average Joe. I'm not special enough. I'm not one of the special people that God uses." And God immediately responds to him is "You are actually. You are the person I want. You are special. You are the person that I want to use. This is what I have planned for you." Moses was not convinced, so he continues to argue, and he says, "Well, what if I go into Egypt and they don't believe me or listen to me? What if they say, 'God never appeared to you. You're crazy, Moses.'" But basically what Moses is saying here is what if I fail? What if I follow you and I go do this new thing and I head into the unknown and I just totally fail and I embarrass myself and I mess everything up? What if I fail? I think we say that all the time. And what God says to him is, "I'm not going to let you fail. I am calling you to this. I am inviting you to follow me in this. I'm not going to let you fail. It's not a consideration." So Moses, he's getting a little whiny now, but he keeps going, and he tells God, "God, I'm not very good with words. I never have been. I'm not good with words now, and even though you've spoken to me, I get tongue-tied and my words get tangled. Don't you want someone who's a good speaker? It's not me. I'm not a leader. I can't inspire and lead these people. I'm not a good people person. I'm not charismatic. You need someone else." And I love God's response here, because this is not his response. His response is not, "No, Moses, you are a good speaker. You do have these skills." God says, "I know you're a bad speaker, Moses. But I will give you the skills you need. I know you're not good at this. I'm not going to pretend that you're perfect. I've heard you speak. It's not great. But I will give you the skills you need to pull this off." And we say that all the time, I can't lead a small group. I can't, go do youth group. I'm not good at that. And God is saying, "I will give you what you need. Don't worry. I will give you the skills you need if you just have a little faith in me here. So God has answered every one of Moses' fears, and Moses still isn't there. This is his last attempt. This is desperate Moses trying to get out of this one last time. He says, Lord, please send anyone else. Like, anyone but me. Send this sheep. Like, don't send me. Anyone else but me. And I think what Moses is saying here is, kind of what happens to us. Like, sometimes the biggest stumbling block to us walking by faith is not really what we believe about God, but it's that we don't have faith in ourselves to pull it off. Like, God presents this new opportunity and invites us to something, and we're like, you've got the wrong person. I don't have the skills. I can't do it. And God says this last thing to Moses, and I really want you to hear this. This is God's response over and over and over again, and this is God's response to us when we're invited to walk by faith. He says, I will be with you. Moses is like, I'm not the right person. I will be with you. It's going to be okay. Have a little faith. But what if I fail and mess up? Like, this is really important. I will be with you. Don't worry. It's not going to fail. Like, I don't have the skills. I'm not good at this. Get someone more talented. I am with you. I'm going to give you the skills you need. Just don't worry. God tells him that over and over again. And this story reminds me, I worked at a church in Indianapolis for a little bit, and when I worked there, a woman in the church, she was a stay-at-home mom. She asked to meet with me and the pastor, and she had this new idea for a ministry, and it was an awesome idea. Like, she had a son with Down syndrome, and she wanted to start a special needs ministry at the church. She's like, we've been to a lot of churches. Like, my son doesn't really fit in at Sunday school and youth group, and it's not really a place for him to build community, and his parents, like, we're in this, and we're on our own, and it's hard, and wouldn't it be cool if we had a support group for all those parents where we can, encourage and help one another? And the pastor was like, yeah, I think that's an awesome idea. You should totally do that. And she was like, wait a minute. Like, you're the pastor. You start new ministries, not me. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Like, I brought this idea for you to do. And then she was, started to bargain a little bit. She's like, or like, what if you found someone in the church who's a teacher? Like, we have a lot of teachers and like people with master's degrees in this stuff. What if you find one of them to start it? I just had the idea. I don't want to be a part of it. And then our pastor like kept telling her like, no, I think you are the right person. Like, you're a mom. You have these experiences. This is your idea. Like, I think God might be encouraging you to just walk by faith and take this on. And she was not excited about that. Like, excited about the ministry, not excited about being in charge, just did not have faith in herself that she could pull it off. And, years later, I still follow them on Facebook, and, like, they just have this huge special needs ministry now. And a pastor didn't start it, and a teacher didn't start it. It was this mom. And she started it, and now they have, like, a youth group that's just for these kids where they can be in community and do things that make sense to them. And there's a support group for all the parents. And it's turned into this ministry where, like, all these families in that suburb of Indianapolis have come to that church now. Because before they didn't really have anywhere to go. And this new ministry has given them a home. And that would have never happened if she, if we let her get away with saying, I'm not the right person for the job. Because she totally was, and it totally worked. So, Moses thought this, he argued with God. As we know, that's not the end of Moses' story. He ends up being the one to lead them out of Israel. God is with him the whole way. He gives him Aaron, his little brother, to help him speak a little bit with those public speaking things that he wasn't good at. And, together they go in, they free the Hebrew slaves from Egypt, and, they walk through the parting of the Red Sea like we always remember, and they go out and he leads them in the desert for 40 years and leads them right up to the promised land. Like, Moses continued to walk by faith. This first start with the burning bush, his faith was lacking a little bit. He was scared, he was worried, but he decided to step forward anyway and went on to do just totally amazing things. So as we wrap up today, I'm going to tell one more story about walk of faith. I need this big thing out of my way. This one's from the New Testament. This is probably the most famous walk of faith in the Bible. Once I start, you're going to know it, but the disciples are out in the middle of a lake on a boat, and they're sailing on to the next city, and Jesus stayed behind to pray, and he's like, don't worry, I'll catch up to you. I'm Jesus, I'll figure it out. So the disciples took off without him, and they're in this boat, and it's getting really stormy and choppy out there, and so they wake up, they come up on deck, and they see this ghost walking out on the water. And then they're terrified. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost like coming at us. We're all going to die. And I imagine Jesus was just like, how many miracles do I have to do before you guys will realize I can do this kind of stuff? Like, I can heal people. I can raise the dead. Yes, I can walk on water. It's not a ghost. It's me. So they're like, oh my gosh, it's Jesus out there. And Peter's not buying it. Peter says, if that's really you, Jesus, then like, let me hop out of the boat and let me walk on water. Then I'll believe you. I think Peter's plan was that like the ghost was going to say, no, don't hop out of the boat, and he was going to catch him. But instead, Jesus says, all right, Peter, hop on out. Peter's looking over the edge, sees all these waves, and he's like, I did not think that you were going to say that, but here we go. So like, Peter takes this first step out of the boat, which I'm sure was just terrifying, because did he really think he was going to walk on water, or did he think he was just going to fall right into the water? But he takes this first step out of the boat. He's like, I'm walking on water. And he's just probably totally amazed, and he can't believe this is happening, and he like takes another step to make sure it's real, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm walking on water. This is amazing. Jesus was right. But then, unfortunately, like, Peter looks down, and he looks around him, and he's like, how is this possible? And he like sees the wind and the waves, and the boat is like rocking behind him, and you know, he starts to get scared and terrified, and he starts to sink. And he calls out to Jesus like, Jesus, save me, I'm sinking. And what happened was like Peter was already walking on water. Like, Jesus was already proven right. And after a few steps, Peter gets scared because instead of just focusing on Jesus and walking towards him, he started looking around at all his circumstances. And it didn't make sense to him, and everything he saw looked scary. And when he took his eyes off Jesus and started looking at that stuff, it's when he started to sink. And of course, Jesus reaches out immediately and grabs him and pulls him up and says, you have so little faith in me. Like, why did you doubt me? You were already walking on water. You were already doing it. But you took your eyes off me and you started looking at all the circumstances and you got scared. And I think the hardest part of walking by faith like this for us is we always want to know the what and the when and the where and the how and the why and all those questions. But when we walk by faith, we only get to know one thing, and that's the who. And Peter lost focus of the who, and he started looking like, how am I walking on water? Where am I going? How did this happen? Why is this happening? And he started to sink. And Jesus is saying, like, have a little faith in the who. You know, stay focused on me. And I think if we wait until we know the what, the when, the how, the where, the why, like, we will never get out of the boat. If I just was waiting for all of those things, I would have never bought a house or never signed up for anything and just stayed totally paralyzed, and I would live in that apartment over there. But, you know, eventually we've got to just trust the who and step out of the boat. And I think for a lot of us, like, we're going to stay in the boat. And the boat's okay. Like, the boat's safe, and it probably gets to the other side of the lake, too. The boat's fine. But God has way more in store for us than staying in the boat. And we're never going to get to experience it unless we like take that step that's totally terrifying and put our other foot down and be like, oh my gosh, I'm walking on water. You know, I can do these amazing things. I can accomplish these things I didn't believe in. And like this plan that I had for myself on the boat, like God is totally going to exceed it. You know, if we walk by faith, we're going to get to experience those cool moments with God. So it just takes that first step, and we're not going to get there if we just stay in the boat all our lives. So let us go to God now and let us pray. God, sometimes we look around at this life right now, and we look at the future, and it's so unknown, and there's so many possibilities, and the waves and the wind and everything is scaring us, and we look down, and it just totally terrifies us, and we feel like we can't take another step forward. God, just help us have faith today. Whatever you have in store for us the rest of the day, the rest of this month, the rest of this year, into the future, God, remind us that you have control over it. It's not unknown to you, but you have plans and dreams and great things in store for us, and we can trust that you know that. God, for those of us that are in the boat and we've been in the boat and we know we need to step out, but we're just too scared, God, help us take that first step today. And as we take that first step of faith, remind us that we're walking on water now. And that's because of you. For the people that are looking around at all their circumstances and it's overwhelming and it's scary and we don't understand it. God, help us keep focused on you. When we look at those circumstances and start to sink, give us a hand, remind us that you've got us, that as long as we're walking with you, you're not going to let us sink. Even though we don't understand it, even though we know for sure we're going to sink, remind us that you've got us. You're going to pull us up. You're going to keep us safe, and you're going to continue to love and care for us. You have great, amazing dreams for just every single person in here, God, and it's going to take some faith for us to get to those. And I just pray that you give us hope for all our doubts and for all those uncertainties on our mind. Just give us reassurance, and for all that anxiety, give us peace, God, so that we can continue to walk by faith for everything and towards everything that you have in store for us. And God, we come together now and pray the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, and we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Well, I, for one, am very glad that even though Leandra said moist in church, that we were able to invite her back and have her be here. Chris, are you still in here? There, you're sitting, right? You were over here first service. So thank you so much. We are blessed congregation to be able to have you and to have all that you've done. If you'd like to talk to Chris and hear a little bit more maybe about her stories, or just give her a pat on the back and say thank you, she's going to be out by, there's a cookie table. We've got cookies for you after church today, so you can, and Chris, their cookies are really for you, but we're going to let you share those with other people as well. So just stop by and say thanks to her for everything that she's done. There's McKenna sitting back there taking plant sale orders, so if you'd like to order some plants, you can do that. And I was thinking about Leandra's service today, or sermon today, and at the end, she really did. She said, you know what? We don't know the what, the why, the when, the where, or the how. But the thing we know is the who. And because of the who, we can walk by faith each and every day. And we can know that this is the one that created us and guides us that is leading every step of the way. So go this week, have a great week, and we will see you back here next Sunday here at the Water's Edge.